Misguided Idealism, Why the Jamaican Gleaner's Critique of PM Kamla Persad-Bissessar Misses the Mark, an editorial by Professor Wall Street. The Jamaican Gleaner's editorial titled Trinidad and Tobago's Wrong Posture reads more like a page from the People's National Movement, PNM, playbook than a balanced regional analysis. In its attempt to chastise Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar for her bold stance on drug trafficking and regional security, the editorial glosses over the harsh realities plaguing the Caribbean and misrepresents her call for U.S. assistance as a threat to peace rather than a pragmatic response to crisis. Here are 10 reasons why the editorial is misleading and why PM Persad-Bissessar's position deserves serious reconsideration. 1. The zone of peace narrative ignores violent realities. The Caribbean is romanticized as a tranquil region, yet countries like Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, and the Bahamas consistently rank among the highest in global homicide rates. This contradiction undermines the notion of a zone of peace and exposes the editorial's idealism as dangerously detached from reality. 2. Drug trafficking is a transnational threat. PM. Persad-Bissessar's appeal for U.S. support is not about militarization. It's about confronting a transnational criminal enterprise that local resources alone cannot dismantle. The editorial fails to acknowledge the scale and complexity of narco-trafficking networks operating across the region. 3. Selective outrage over U.S. involvement. The Gleaner criticizes U.S. naval activity near Venezuela, but ignores the fact that Caribbean nations have long relied on international cooperation for security and intelligence. Why is U.S. support suddenly vilified when it aligns with Trinidad and Tobago's interests? 4. Kamla's mandate reflects popular will. As the Caribbean Global People's Choice Award winner in 2025, PM Persad-Bissessar's leadership is not only legitimate, it's celebrated. Her stance reflects the will of citizens who are tired of living under the shadow of gang violence and drug-related crime. 5. Oversimplification of CARICOM's position. The editorial praises CARICOM's declaration without acknowledging its ambiguity. Trinidad and Tobago's reserve stance is not defiance, it's discernment. PM Persad-Bissessar is asking hard questions about how peace can be achieved when violence is rampant. 6. Due process versus reality of maritime crime. While concerns about due process are valid, the editorial ignores the fact that maritime drug trafficking often involves armed confrontations. The U.S. policy of treating traffickers as combatants may be controversial, but it reflects the severity of the threat. 7. Regional solidarity shouldn't mean silence. The editorial implies that dissent from CARICOM's consensus weakens regional unity. In truth, healthy democracies thrive on debate. PM Persad-Bissessar's stance challenges complacency and forces the region to confront uncomfortable truths. 8. Economic impact of crime is devastating. Drug trafficking and gang violence are not just security issues, they're economic ones. Tourism, investment, and public trust suffer when crime spirals. Seeking U.S. help is a strategic move to stabilize the economy and protect livelihoods. 9. PNM echoes in the Gleaner's tone. The editorial's dismissive tone toward PM Persad-Bissessar mirrors the rhetoric often used by her political opponents in the PNM. It undermines her leadership by framing her decisiveness as recklessness, a tactic familiar in partisan critiques. 10. Leadership requires courage, not conformity. PM. Persad-Bissessar's willingness to challenge regional orthodoxy and seek external support is not weakness, it's courage. In a region plagued by violence, her proactive stance is a model of leadership that prioritizes safety over sentiment. In conclusion, the Gleaner's editorial fails to grapple with the gravity of the Caribbean security crisis. PM Kamla Persad-Bissessar is not eroding peace, she's confronting the illusion of it. Her call for U.S. assistance is a bold, necessary step toward reclaiming safety and sovereignty in a region under siege. A call for courage and clarity. The Caribbean cannot afford to cling to comforting illusions while its streets run red with the consequences of organized crime. The Gleaner's editorial, though well-intentioned, fails to confront the brutal paradox. A region celebrated for peace is simultaneously plagued by violence. PM Kamla Persad-Bissessar's call for U.S. assistance is not a betrayal of Caribbean sovereignty. It is a bold assertion of responsibility in the face of escalating threats. Leadership demands more than poetic declarations of unity. It requires the moral clarity to act when lives are at stake. By challenging the status quo, Persad-Bissessar is not undermining regional diplomacy. She is elevating it. Her stance forces CARICOM and its member states to reckon with the uncomfortable truth. Peace is not the absence of war, but the presence of justice, safety, and accountability. If the Caribbean is to truly become a zone of peace, it must first become a zone of truth. And truth begins with acknowledging that the fight against drug trafficking and violent crime cannot be won with silence, sentiment, or symbolism. It demands action. It demands allies. And above all, it demands leaders like Kamla Persad-Bissessar who are willing to speak the hard truths and pursue real solutions.